Hi, I'm Jennifer Blackshaw. I'm the Senior Catholic Education Social Worker with Townsville Catholic Education. Unfortunately, child abuse is a reality. Child abuse does happen, and it happens to students that you know. We won't always know who is being harmed, but there are often many signs that something is not quite right. I have worked with many staff across the Townsville Diocese regarding matters where students are being abused outside of school. It is such a shock to a classroom teacher to discover that you have a child in your class that might be being abused. That doesn't happen in families, does it? Yes, it does. We are talking about small children being harmed, and even teenagers in senior grades at secondary schools. None of us like to think about that, but it happens, and we have to recognise that it happens, and more regularly than any of us would like. The whole issue of child abuse is really confronting. Most people in the Australian community would prefer to think that child abuse occurred in communities completely different to theirs, because the frequency and the occurrence of child abuse reflects poorly on all of us. So people don't often want to think about this, and that is compounded by people's own experiences of abuse, because child abuse is so prevalent that many adults walking around have experienced their own abuse, and they don't want to think about that either. Prior to joining Catholic Education, I worked for the Department of Child Safety for over 20 years. I was staggered by the amount of children that are subjected to things that we would not expect them to experience. And there is probably one in every class. Often we just don't know it. Most child protection workers will tell you that those figures are just the tip of the iceberg. It is unpleasant for all of us, but for staff in the schools it can be really distressing. Staff in schools often forge wonderful connections with their students, investing in their learning and their development, not just academically, but as people as well. So to suspect or find out that one of your students has been harmed can be really shocking. Most staff will have never seen anything like the effects of abuse before. So to be talking about these things, to be confronting them and trying to work through how to respond, and then often support the student, is really difficult. It is training such as this that we can reinforce where staff can locate a range of policies and procedures that they need to be aware of to assist to guide how they respond to matters of student protection. But student protection is a unique area, and it is a very complex area. It's new territory for educators. There was an understanding some time ago that teachers just taught, but the nature of teaching these days and the nature of education these days means that we do need to engage in things that are outside of the classroom in order to assist those students in need. Teachers are usually not psychologists or social workers and shouldn't feel that this is what they are doing. But it is about us living the values that we uphold in our Catholic schools, that we really do care about the whole child. We know that if a student is living in a chaotic home, awake at night listening to family members arguing or fighting or drinking, they will struggle to function and be attentive at school. While we often don't have the time to single out a student, there are things that we can do to help them. It may be that you notice a pattern of concerning behaviours. Remember that you have support via guidance counsellors and the school leadership team and pastoral coordinators. If you have concerns about a student, you are duty-bound to raise these concerns. To me, a teacher is essential to young people's lives. Often they can, in some cases, be closer to the children than their own parents, depending on what is happening at home for them. For many children, coming to school is their only safe place. You can't teach children if they are not in the time zone or focused on their learning if their mind is elsewhere. If they are more worried about mum and dad fighting when they get home, or what's happened the night before, or what they have seen, or what's happened to them. They are never going to achieve any academic progress unless they can feel secure enough and have the confidence to tell someone. How we respond is critical. It may have taken that child months to build the courage and trust in us to say something. Don't make assumptions. While you may find it hard to believe that the nice family you met at parent-teacher interviews could actually be involved in a serious domestic violence relationship and their 7-year-old is regularly witnessing and experiencing this violence at home, it may be true. I don't believe that any parent or caregiver sets out to be an abuser or mistreat a child. I believe, based upon my experiences in working with hundreds of vulnerable families over many years, that any one of us faced with the myriad of stresses that many families face could become a less patient and less able parent. So while we may feel angry or disgusted that someone has harmed a child, we need to remember that judgment and anger does not help the child. Sometimes making the difficult step to report concerns about a child is actually the best thing, as a family may go on to get access to many great services that can assist them and help to resolve their issues. The advantage of undertaking training in the area of child abuse and understanding child protection is that people do not have to rely upon their own values. They have a framework for understanding what has to happen when they suspect a child is being abused. And that is why training such as this is vital for everybody. To be very clear about what are the serious implications for children if child abuse is not attended to or not responded to appropriately.